Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the entire NASCAR industry, I cannot overstate how great it is to be back in the Bay Area. The beauty around us in San Francisco and at Sonoma Raceway this weekend is what continues to make this weekend a marquee race on the NASCAR schedule. So much has changed in NASCAR since the last time we were all able to gather freely in sports venues like Sonoma Raceway. There's momentum across NASCAR that has revitalized our sport. The on-track competition has been tremendous. Television ratings, attendance, and digital consumption are on an upward trajectory thanks to a commitment of embracing new audiences, new innovation, and new owners. The future is bright for NASCAR, and all the individuals joining us today have played a critical role in getting us to where we are today, and will continue to play a major role taking this sport to new heights in the future. To talk about how we got here and where we're going, I'd like to introduce NASCAR President Steve Phelps, Executive Vice President and General Manager of Sonoma Raceway, Jill Gregory, Vice President of Diversity and Inclusion, Brandon Thompson, Driver of the number 45 for the 2311 Racing, Kurt Busch, and Driver of the number 99 Chevrolet for Trackhouse Racing, Daniel Suarez. Steve, let's start with you. Last time we were here in person, the sport was in a very different place. Walk us through some of the significant changes NASCAR has made the last 3 years that's led to the momentum we're experiencing right now as we head into Sonoma Raceway's weekend.
Thanks, Brent. It's a pleasure to be here. I'll reiterate what Brent had said. It's always a fantastic to get to the Bay Area and get up to Sonoma Raceway. Certainly always circled on my calendar. I want to thank the media as well for coming. You guys are a very important part of the success of the sport. So thank you for all you do with getting the stories of our terrific drivers, the storylines, all the sights and sounds that make NASCAR just such a fantastic sport. So now I'll answer your question, Brent. It's very different for us. I think if you think about 2019, our attendance was coming back, our ratings had increased after some retirement of some of our most iconic drivers, Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Carl Edwards. So had some popularity of our drivers that had retired. And then you had this incredible group of young drivers coming into the sport, like Danny Suarez, Bubba Wallace, Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, and others, battling guys like Kurt Busch, who will be most likely a first ballot Hall of Famer. And so that was taking shape, which has been fantastic. But it's really the events of 2020 that changed where the sport and the trajectory of the sport would go, and it really put us on a different plane. And it really started with COVID. So when we shut down in mid-March, like every other sport, immediately we started to, senior members got together, Jill Gregory being one of the 4 people that I consulted with on this, and we started to build a plan for how we're going to be the first sport back to competing, which is what we did 71 days later at Darlington Raceway on May 18th. That was very important for us to be that first sport back to competing. It came with a bit of a burden, right? We didn't know whether we could make it work, and we did it by coming together as an industry. Our race teams, our drivers, our OEM partners, and our racetracks, all coming together to figure out how we could get back to racing. So we were the first sport back to racing or competing, and then we were the first sport back to competing in front of race fans, as we did at Talladega Superspeedway. Those were important parts for our sport, but I think the events of June of 2020 really changed the face of NASCAR forever. And that really was the stance we took on social justice, which I think really surprised some people. The banning of the Confederate flag, the show of support that our entire industry had for Bubba Wallace around the situation at Talladega Superspeedway when a noose was found in his garage stall. And watching this whole industry come together and support a member of our community who we all believed was under attack. Turns out he was not. That noose had been there, the pull-down garage noose had been there for 6 months. With that said, that changed where we are, and Brandon's going to talk in a little bit about what happened from a diversity, equity, inclusion standpoint since that time. And we've been very vigilant about that. So that was the events of 2020 that led to us getting a full season in, kind of getting back in a COVID world to competing, and what happened from a social justice standpoint. And then fast forward to 2022, I think one of the most significant things that have happened is the number of new owners that have come into this sport, and largely due to our next gen car, which has been just, I couldn't have dreamed that it would go as well as it has. The racing has been simply extraordinary. So it's been a journey. We are, to Brent's point, our ratings are up, our attendance is up. We have a whole new set of race fans who are coming to the racetrack, watching on television, participating in digital and social, and it's working. This is a welcoming environment, and we want different people to come to our racetracks and feel special and feel welcome.
Jill, you played a huge role in a lot of the initiatives and programs and everything that happened, especially in 2020 that Steve just talked about. But as a member of the senior executive team at NASCAR at that time, now you're leading the path forward with Sonoma Raceway. Can you talk about your experience during your tenure at NASCAR, and also what this experience you have there, what you're bringing to Sonoma Raceway, and what this community now and in the future?
Yeah, thanks, Brent, and thanks, Steve. And I echo the thank you guys for being here. It's great to be back with a full crowd this weekend, first time since 2019 at Sonoma Raceway. And so it's been an interesting transition, being on the NASCAR side and then now being on the track side. Sonoma Raceway was the track that I went to my first NASCAR race at, so a bit of a homecoming. But I've been able to really take all of the experiences, all the relationships, that I was able to build at NASCAR and bring that to Sonoma. And we really have been trying to make sure that Sonoma Raceway lives up to the billing of, Steve circling on his calendar, Daniel and Kurt wanting to be here. I mean, it is one of those weekends that we all want to come to, but we want to make sure that the track is doing everything that we need to do to make sure that we are a premier venue to host an event like this. And so I think that's doing a lot of the things that we know fans love. Obviously, we're in Sonoma Valley, and so the wine tasting and the scenery and all of that is kind of accepted and expected. But when you get out there this weekend, and I really hope that we see you all there, it's going to be different. It's going to feel fresh and new, and we really tried to take a fresh look at everything. And we've listened to the fans. What do they want? We know there are things they love about Sonoma, but what can we add and improve? And to Steve's point, we want new fans to come out. We're seeing, like many of our other tracks, the increase in new fans buying tickets for the first time is through the roof. And that's been because of some of the things that we were able to do at NASCAR and us delivering on our end at Sonoma Raceway.
To build on what Jill talked about, Kurt, I want to come to you next. You finished in the top 10 4 of the last 5 races at Sonoma. What makes the track special for you, and what does the track mean to NASCAR in this area of the country now and in the future?
Yeah, it's one of those fun weekends where we race on the oval circuit so much in NASCAR that when we have road courses, I always treat it like a weekend off. Like it was fun to go up and down the hills, shift gears, and of course it's an important race. Of course you want to get that trophy, and the whole atmosphere around Sonoma, it's a different vibe. And I think it's just Northern California scene, the race fans that are up here, and growing up in Vegas, this was always a fun road trip where we would come up and race the Southwest Tour car on Saturday. And in the 90s, I won one of the Saturday races, and this track will always be special in my heart because I believe it helped springboard my career to the Cup Series. And so it's fun coming here and teaching new engineers, new crew members about the road racing scene. And I can't wait to see all of Jill's addition to the track. With the way that you're seeing our sport collectively work together, this whole scene after COVID has taught us how to look at our sport from all different angles, and we're all doing it together in much more of a detailed way. So whether it's the tracks, the team owners, the drivers, you're seeing it in a newfound way, and it's just fun to be part of the sport right now.
And Kurt, as a follow-up, we have to ask while you're here. You're on a new team this year. What's it like to drive for a race team owned by Michael Jordan?
Oh, there's this other guy, Denny Hamlin, too. Yeah, it's great. Just like with Daniel's situation, a new team, new ownership from outside of the normal realm of how an owner would start out, so to speak, with whether it's a truck team or an Xfinity team. You're seeing guys now just show up at the Cup Series level due to the next gen car and the way that Steve Phelps has positioned our sport for success from outsiders to come in and to be able to compete. Yes, you still have to cut your teeth and tear off your rookie ribbon, but you have to work your way up, and the next gen car has allowed that to happen in a little bit quicker of a transition. And with MJ, it's fun. Denny's such an analytical guy. MJ is that spiritual, we know that you're the right guy, we know that we don't have to question your talent, just go and do it. And then Denny's on the other end of, hey, can you fill out this report? I need this done, I need this analytical thing. It's great learning from both and using all the years of experience that I have to have fun with this job.
Brandon, Steve touched on NASCAR's efforts and the progress that's been made over the past few years in the diversity and inclusion space. Can you talk a bit more about the progress and then highlight a few of the tangible initiatives NASCAR's undertaking to help promote this change?
Absolutely. Thanks, Brent. I think, and you're right, Steve did touch on a lot of it. I think going back to Steve actually putting his leadership, I would say, on Front Street in Atlanta and addressing the crowd and the drivers, the industry as a whole. Recognizing that we weren't where we needed or want to be, or where we strove to be, but also that we were in, and that we understood the importance of the things that were happening, and that we needed to be, use our platform to be able to move forward in that way. And so that really spurred, to Steve's point, a lot of different conversations and committees being stood up. Jill being a part of that. So one of those I'll speak about is the Employee Diversity Council, which was formed actually after really sometime around April, after Kyle Larson had his incident earlier that year, but really just as a forum for employees from diverse backgrounds and from all different verticals of the company to be able to come and speak to Jill and Steve and other executives at the time about how some of those things affected the employee base. And it was from that we really started to form the strategy in the space of working from the inside out. The first thing that we had to do was make sure that that NASCAR Inc., so to speak, was a great place to work, and that it was a desirable place to work, and the employees felt accepted for who they are and felt like they could show up. The other thing that we knew that we had to do from that point was to start to get the industry on board. And so one of the things, again, that both Steve and Jill tasked us with was forming an Industry Diversity Council, which is literally inclusive of every stakeholder in the sport, be that from broadcast, the teams, drivers. Daniel's on that council as well. And so really making sure that if there was anything that we could do to make sure that the industry was completely involved, and that we could start to work the different connections that Jill spoke about, and the different sponsor relationships and all those types of things to really galvanize the industry. And then finally was around how do we, A, get fans on board, but B, what type of partnerships can we stand up to help us drive us forward in the space. We know that, and Kurt spoke about this, the success of the next gen car. We're really good at racing cars, but we're not a social justice organization. But we know that social justice is important. We know that diversity, equity, and inclusion is important. And so whether it's working with the Trevor Project or the Urban League Young Professionals in Charlotte, or the Carolinas LGBTQ Chamber, the list sort of goes on and on from there about different partners that we could go out and partner with to make sure that our voices were heard and that we were doing the right thing with the platform that we were given.
Daniel, like Kurt, also drives for a new set of owners in Justin Marks and entertainment mogul Pitbull at Trackhouse Racing. As a new team, Trackhouse Racing is already revolutionizing the model through initiatives such as Project 91, which is designed to expand the organization's international reach. Can you talk about the importance of those efforts and what it means to inclusion efforts in the sport?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you everyone for being here. I think that it's important to mention that without the next gen car, we wouldn't be talking about Trackhouse Racing. Probably most likely we wouldn't be talking about 2311. Like the next gen car has bring a lot of opportunities to current new teams, and I'm sure that he's going to continue to do that in the near future. I think that has been an extremely important factor. Justin Mark has mentioned to me this several times. Since the very first time we sit together to talk about partner together, he say this project is around the next gen car. So I feel like that was an incredible idea that NASCAR and everyone in this group was able to put together to make it happen. Already Project 91, it's been a journey. I've been talking to Justin about this and Pitbull for months, and I have never felt this way with Trackhouse. I just feel like it's my home. It's that place where I enjoy so much to go work and push hard. Pitbull and we have known each other for 8-10 years, but we never got the relationship that we have today. Right now we talk every single week. He's super competitive. He loves to bring people together, and he tells me this all the time. He said, man, music, doesn't matter if you speak Spanish, English, Portuguese, doesn't matter. Music is one language. And in racing, he said, I'm seeing that everyone is together. And that was his goal since the very beginning. He loved racing, but he wanted to make one, And I'm really very, very proud to be partnered with him. And Project 91, I was talking to Justin about this, that it's going to be very exciting for me to have a front row seat on this project, because for the last 10 years, I have felt that I came to a sport with a different background, with a different education, without speaking English, trying to understand the sport, trying to understand the culture. And it's been a process. It hasn't been easy, but obviously, thanks to a lot of people in the sport, they have made me feel like home, and they have made me make that progress easier. So every single member that comes through this Project 91 most likely is going to go through the process that I have had to go through in the last 10 years. So I think it's going to be very exciting for me to be on the front row on this project and try to help as much as I can.
Steve, we've heard a lot from the group and how we got here today, and NASCAR is experiencing momentum like never before. What's next as NASCAR continues to grow and evolve?
So I think we're gonna, or two words, we're gonna be bold and innovative. I think we've done that. Whether you're talking about schedule innovation, think about going to the LA Coliseum and running an exhibition race, the Busch Light Clash at the Coliseum. We never would have done that, right? And first time any of us heard that, like they brought it to me. I'm like, can we do that? It was important. So we are going to be bold. We're going to be innovative. We're going to keep mashing the gas, if you will. That's been the success of NASCAR over the last 2.5 years, is doing things that are unexpected, going to places that are unexpected. And we want to get to a point where people are actually saying, well, that's actually what I would expect from NASCAR, as opposed to just sitting back and, hey, we're running a race here and it's great, and boy, you had some guys lead a lap. And you consider that these two race teams, Trackhouse and 2311 Racing, since last October, they've won 2 races apiece, right? And although Danny hasn't won a race yet in the Cup Series, he was an Xfinity Series champion, and he has led a ton of laps. So Danny's time is coming, and we're really excited about that, because he's a breath of fresh air, and his personality is infectious, and Kurt's just a tremendous ambassador for the sport overall. So we're really excited what the future holds. I think more schedule innovation is in our future. What that looks like, I don't know. Certainly no announcements today. But we're poised to be able to continue the success that we've had for our media partners, our sponsors, and most importantly from our fans. Because the winners in all of this, frankly, have been the fans. And it's really just this terrific racing that these guys are putting on with the next gen car.
Jill, I'll ask the same question for you. What's next in your vision for Sonoma Raceway?
Well, if we're talking about schedule, maybe a second date in Sonoma. Anyone? Yeah, oh, I hear some cheers back there.
One of your employees.
Yeah. He's smart. No, I think that we want to do the same thing, you know, to take Steve's word, innovate. You know, that you don't really see that maybe at the forefront of a track, because what we need to do is operate and put on the best race on our weekend, or the other weekends of the year. You know, 51 other weekends a year we're, you know, jam-packed and entertaining race fans, but we need to do our part from a venue standpoint. We are the home team, so we're looking at, you know, getting the Giants, seeing the Giants get ready to take the field. We are the home team in the Bay Area for NASCAR, and we need to reflect that. We need to innovate. We need to make sure that we are the best place that fans want to come, not just because we're in Sonoma Valley, so we already kind of have a leg up on that, but does the facility look good? Are we listening to the fans? Are we giving them the experiences they want? Are we working with the drivers? Because that's what fans come to see. And I think that's going to be, I think what you're going to see the most excitement around this weekend is that our fans haven't had that access. They haven't, you know, back when we raced last year is when Kurt and Daniel were just walking up to the car, getting in and racing. That was kind of the last weekend. And you miss that interaction, that kind of vibe that you get. And so we're going to keep doing that. We're going to make sure that we're the best venue. I do tend to lean on a lot of my old relationships with some of the other speakers here, Steve and Brandon. We want to be the poster child for a track that is at the forefront of diversity and inclusion. We're starting that effort already. And I'm happily working with all of my former coworkers to make that happen. I think it's our responsibility, not just as a part of NASCAR, but as a track in this marketplace, to make sure that we are at the forefront. And then when we're not racing NASCAR, we're doing a ton of technological advancements and innovation at the track. We're testing green vehicles, electric vehicles, alternative fuels. We've got autonomous vehicles running around the track. So given our location, I think we've got a chance to be a leader in just racing technology, and we're going to continue to do that also.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. We'll open it up for questions from the media. Tom, I'll come to you first, and then I'll go to Bob.
Thank you, Brent. Jill, for you, does the trucks coming here and racing in Sonoma for the first time in almost a quarter century, does this fit your bill as of innovation?
Yeah, so the question was, is the trucks coming back to Sonoma part of our innovation? Yes. You know, Saturday was always a great day in our race weekend, but it didn't have all of the content that we wanted our fans to have. So, you know, there's practice and qualifying, or I think happy hour at one point was Saturday. Kurt mentioned the Southwest Tour, Winston West. That was the focal point of Saturday, so that was always great. But think of what the fans are going to get on Saturday, starting with the ARCA race. Then they're going to have Cup practice and qualifying, which they haven't seen since 2019. And then you're going to have a Camping World Truck Series race with drivers that have not seen our facility before. So we've ordered lots of extra decals for some of the turns, because we think Saturday is going to be pretty crazy. But yes, it was, how do we give the fans more content on Saturday? And that is part of our innovation.
We'll go to Bob.
Question for Kurt, looking ahead to this weekend. Last week you guys stayed out and won a stage when a lot of teams did. This intends to potentially have similar strategy. I'm curious if you'll do the same strategy, and if so, is it because you feel like you need to get points and make sure you kind of stay ahead of Centric just as far as some of those things?
Yeah, I feel like there's multiple ways to have a successful weekends, whether it's stage wins or executing with a car that isn't handling well, or whether it's capitalizing on a car's handling that's like we had at Kansas, where the car was so fast you're almost nervous because you don't want to mess things up, and you want to have clean, smooth pit stops and make sure the day goes well. And you know, at St. Louis last weekend, it's the first time for our Cup cars to race there. I saw an opportunity to win a stage. I overrode the crew chief, and it all turned out to where we were able to win the stage. But the side effect of that is now I'm going to be restarting 28th, 30th. And these were things that, these are moments where if you have a good car, you have to really feel that and to find that for the crew chief. And that way then the responsibility is more so on me. Last year, Road America, I was with Ganassi. We finished, I think, 7th, 5th, and 3rd in the race at the end of the day. And we kept staying out to get those stage points because we needed stage points at that time. Now we're all just racing for stage wins. So that's just part of the strategy, and we'll see how things play out. Our first practice is Saturday. Haven't been to the track in a couple of years, and the simulation models are getting better, as well as the actual simulator and driving the car. But it's just still it's a learn as you go and apply it during the race conditions on what your strategy is going to be.
We'll go to Jerry and then Bill in the back.
Real quick for Steve Brandon. Earlier this morning, you got to talk about diversity. The NASCAR released its intern program for diversity. I think 36 interns listed from anything from NASCAR sports betting to e-racing to team stuff to control. How is that impacting across the country? Because some of these kids are coming from big colleges, some from Texas, even A&M and a couple of North Texas, I believe. So how are y'all reaching out to get these kids to come into the sport? And then what is their future like from NASCAR perspective?
Yeah, well, appreciate you bringing that up. So this is the tied for the largest class in program history with 36 interns. And so very, very excited about the work that's being done around that program. And yeah, our recruitment efforts, Jordan Leatherman, who leads that program for us, has done a really good job of establishing a network with a lot of college career planning and placement professionals and just building the network also from interns over the years, right? So every time you get just kind of like a normal collegiate athletic pipeline, right? The time you get someone from a particular school, that's an additional notch in your network. And so just being able to continue to spread the word of the program has been really good. But in terms of what their future is like, I mean, we continue to bring in students full time. I happen to be a product of that and a testimony to that myself, having started in the internship program as well. But every year, there's at least a couple who end up hanging around NASCAR, and that's in addition to folks who may hang around in the industry at large. And so it's a huge recruitment platform for us in what we do. And yeah, we're excited to have some pretty big name colleges. We've got Dartmouth this year. We've got Howard University. We've got Clark Atlanta University. I have to mention that, seeing as how I went there. And so yeah, so we're excited about the classes, this class this year, and some of the schools they're coming from, and their future. I can tell you that from spending the time with the weekend over the 600 weekend, they're a pretty good group, and I'd imagine a lot of them are going to hang out for a bit.
We'll go to Bill and then Ryan in front.
Okay, before Kurt, you just talked about the simulation models getting better. This car looks like a stock car, but underneath it is altogether different. How much do you really learn in the simulator? How much do you go by the seat of your pants once you put it out on the racetrack?
Yeah, again, the next gen car and its design, it might look the same on the outside to some casual lookers, but yet the core fans and some of the new fans are like, wow, this car is different. The sound, the suspension, the look, the feel, the transaxle, sequential gearbox, our digital dash, big 18-inch wheels with a single lug for the pit stops. So tons of things are different, but at the end of the day, once I finally had to go like Kurt, it's just still a stock car. Billy, my crew chief, it's still a heavy stock car that chews up tires and has a ton of horsepower. And so you have some of the same old sequences, but also there's new technology all around us that we have to continue to evolve with. And as soon as you get complacent or you're not staying liquid enough to find the right flow, then you're getting behind. And so the simulators, I would say they're about 75% type of accuracy. We're still missing a little bit on tire wear, air pressure builds, and some of the asphalt changes throughout the race. But in general, you use it as a tool and you continue to develop it to make it better. And that's one of my main jobs at 2311, is to build this foundation up for this number 45 car and leave it in a spot where a young kid can come in and race and have an advantage over some of the other younger kids.
One thing I would say on the car, just kind of moreover, is the car itself is more stock than it's been in 20 years. The dirty secret is the car that we raced last year wasn't stock at all, right? It was a manufactured car by 5 different organizations that race in NASCAR, which is why you needed to have an affiliation. Without it, you could not have. So these Trackhouse Racing needed to have an affiliation with Richard Childress Racing. They don't need to have that affiliation other than what they get from an engine perspective. But the rest of the car has all been RFP'd, and there are 47 different components to the car that the race teams then put together. So, and these guys are learning. To me, the car is just so important, both from a business model standpoint as it relates to the teams, but also the relevance that the OEMs get, and then the styling is just fantastic. And to Kurt's point, it's a throaty beast from a sound standpoint, and you've got exhaust out both sides, which is last year's car obviously did not have that.
We'll come to Ryan up front, and then over on the back.
Louis, by the way.
Yeah.
Not Ryan.
Okay.
This question is for Hope and Danny. One, of course, this weekend at Sonoma, Bay Area, and Ryan love it all, Bowman is carrying the Allied Colors with the community and all that. How vital is kind of providing security for those people, more so in this type of month, and being in the Bay Area, where it's synonymous for that kind of culture?
Yeah, I think that having Sonoma Raceway deliver on our responsibility to be inclusive, it's hugely important for us to participate in Pride. And I've been working with Brandon and his team for a couple of months now on what we can be doing, as the visible piece of NASCAR in this marketplace. Sonoma Raceway, for the first time last weekend, participated in the Sonoma County Pride Parade in Santa Rosa, downtown Santa Rosa. A lot of our employees came out. They were thrilled that we were doing that. We'll be doing something similar here in San Francisco. So I think that we are kind of that frontline representative of the NASCAR industry. And if we want NASCAR to be welcome to all, then making sure that the LGBTQ community is part of that is crucial. And so we're going to make sure that we're at the forefront of that effort.
Cool. We'll go to the back, then Tom, then Jerry.
This is for both drivers. So you've obviously only had one road course race with this new car, but Coda and Sonoma have some similar aspects. The elevation change uses in the first section. So is there anything that you learned that weekend in Austin that you feel like you might be able to apply this week?
Can you say that one more time, a little louder?
Yeah, so Coda and Sonoma obviously have some similar aspects, the elevation change, the ice is in the first sector. You've only had the one road course race with this new car, but is there anything that you feel like you'll be able to apply to Sonoma given what you learned in Austin?
Yeah, it's going to be, if you think about it, most of the races that we have had this year with the next-gen car, we have been for the first time ever in these places. So it's been a process and it's been a challenge, but I felt that as we get more races under our belt, teams are just getting smarter. The circle of the gap between the fastest car and a mid-pack car is getting smaller and smaller. It's sometimes you are in the front and you go for whatever reason you go in the middle of the pack, and then it's difficult to get back to the front because the speed is very similar. So I think overall it's gonna be fun. We have had several tests at Charlotte in the Roval, which it was very, very helpful and very productive. Already we raced at Cota, completely different racetrack than Sonoma, but I think that we have already a good notebook for road course with this race car, which honestly is a blast to drive, not just in ovals, but in road course stuff. So really, really excited for that. And I just wanted to add very quick to the previous question. I wanted to thank NASCAR, Jill, Brandon, because this weekend actually we're going to have for the first time Daniel's Amigos here in Sonoma, and without them this wouldn't be possible. So it takes a lot of time, a lot of work, a lot of effort. We're going to have a few hundred Daniel's Amigos out there, most of them Hispanics. We're going to have a nice event on Sunday morning, so really looking forward to that. And this wouldn't be possible, like I said, without NASCAR, without the racetrack, Jill, and obviously, a great group of people that helps put this together, and of course Coca-Cola, because without them it wouldn't be possible.
We'll go to Tom and then Jerry in the back.
Following up kind of sort of here, for Daniel and Kurt, qualifying position, how will that affect your pit stop strategies and selections, and how you approach the race each stage?
And I think qualifying with this next-gen car and the stages, everything becomes that much more important on that qualifying effort. Because, again, pit box selection, if you're up in the top 10, you want to stay out to get those stage points. You don't want to have to yield the track position. And so it just depends on how the car and how the day is going. I mean, Trackhouse had an incredible COTA road course race earlier this year, and we struggled big time at 2311. And so call it a sister track, call it somewhat similar to your question on how will Sonoma play out. We know we need to do a much better job on the road courses. And so this weekend is a big turning point for us on how we can capitalize as a team, but also utilize all the stages to get the right points.
Is there a backwards approach perhaps where you're thinking ahead with one early stop in relation to how you are in the field at that point?
Yeah, I think when I won here in 2011, the tires would go the full 30 laps, which is about the same on fuel. Now the tires wear out much quicker, and it seems like your strategy is split in half. You're only going 15 laps now because of how gooey and gummy and sticky the tires are, but then how much they drop off. And so you're not necessarily racing the race backwards like we used to on pit as soon as you can make it on fuel. But there might be some teams that choose that and go with that direction. So we'll learn in the quick 20 minutes that NASCAR gives us on Saturday's practice.
We'll go to Jerry, and then we'll take one final question up front.
Steve, for you on the new car, and since we're on that, there's been a few issues, obviously, getting used to some things, a single lug nut, and just the car's put on some phenomenal shows as we talked about it. You know, out in LA at the Coliseum, and the Coke 600 was probably one of the best that we've seen in a very long time, if ever. What are some of the nuances that you would like to see tweaked, or what are some of the things that you have tweaked along the way to get it to where we're racing and people are really starting to say, hey, we need to pay attention to this?
Yeah, well, as I said before, Jerry, I think with the exception of maybe one race, which I won't actually say which race that is, I think that the next gen car and the racing that it's put on, it's arguably the best racing that NASCAR has ever had. And I don't think there's any hyperbole in that at all. I really don't. You know, the teams do an amazing job of adapting to new things. They just do. And so they're adapted to 18-inch tires, right? It's very different than the 15-inch tires we raced at. The car itself, you know, Danny talked about how fun it is to drive this car, particularly on a road course. It's going to be fantastic. So there are a couple of things that we're looking at. You know, are there things that we could do to the sidewall, because we've had the teams get aggressive on camber and air pressure, and we've had some blowouts. The teams are going to continue to push the envelope because lower air pressure and finding that right spot from a camber standpoint makes the car go faster. So, we'll just keep working in the teams and the OEs to make sure that whatever needs to happen that puts on even better racing, which I think I'd be hard pressed to get to, but we'll always endeavor to do better. So I'm excited about what the future holds for this car. If there's one wish that I would have, the dreaded supply chain issues, inflation. We're trying to keep the costs down. When you have shortages, but the teams have made it work. I mean, it's been extraordinary. So shout out to the teams.
I don't know if you're a racer, but have you driven it at all? Does anybody let you take it?
I'd be going up into turn 1 at Sonoma, and I'd lose it at the top of the hill. So no, I've not. I leave that to the professionals. I have been in a car, certainly driven by a professional. That scared the crap out of me too, frankly.
We'll take one final question up front.
So many questions still, but talk about the diversity program and how it reaches colleges, particularly for any of you. But what about drivers? How do you get more young women, minorities as drivers? You see there are some at ARCA and some of the lower levels, but still not a lot. So how are you going to recruit more actual drivers?
Appreciate that question very much, because I was kicking myself earlier when I didn't mention that program. So you mean, how do we find more Daniel Suarez? So Daniel is a product, absolutely, but specifically it's the fact that they came from, yes, all of those drivers you named at some point in their career were a part of the Drive for Diversity program that we have, which we've had since the year 2004. And so that program, certainly we would love for it to have produced more fruit, if you will. But we think it's got some pretty good fruit when you look at an Xfinity Series champion, cup winners and a cup champion, along with Haley Deegan competing at a high level in the truck series. We've got Roger Carruth, who had a great finish last week, who's currently in that program. He's leading the ARCA points. Nick Sanchez is second in points, already has 2 wins this year. And really, when you look at the top 5 drivers in ARCA, they're all diverse in some way. So, with the exception of third place Daniel Dye, I think. So, in terms of a pipeline, which is what I hear you asking, we're certainly building that. We're looking to continue to expand that pipeline, certainly through the efforts with Max Siegel and over at Rev Racing, and I think we've got the right things and the right people in place and the right structure in place to be able to continue to do that. Another driver I'd call out is LeVar Scott, who is also in the Drive for Diversity program. He's already got a late model win early in his career, and so we're excited about the future. And yes, we'd love to expand the pipeline and actively working with Steve and the drivers and a lot of folks to be able to do that. But we feel like we've certainly got a good crop now and want more.
Brandon, is there any relation with LeVar Scott to Wendell at all?
No, there is not. Just right. They drive the same car number. Of course, he drives that in honor of Wendell, but not quite. I wish.
Okay, now one more thing, because we haven't talked about this. You eliminated the carousel. We talked about this on the phone the other day. You eliminated the carousel. You added back to the chute. Potentially more exciting and create more passing opportunities. How'd you come up with that idea, and what do you think it's really going to accomplish?
Yeah, so the question was about returning to the chute from the carousel configuration. The good news for us is that we've got 2 opportunities. We can change it anytime we want to, but number one is fan feedback. I learned that early in my tenure at NASCAR, that the fans, that's who we're here for, and we listened to them a lot, and we ran the carousel, which was great. We had a great race last year, and we're really happy with how that came about. We were running it for the 50th anniversary of Sonoma Raceway, but immediately after the race, drivers and fans were calling and saying, hey, can we bring the chute back? And overwhelmingly, the fans wanted to see the chute back. For us, more laps means more turns, means more turn 11, up turn 1, turn 7. So I think that it's just going to allow more opportunities for these guys to show off what the next gen car can do. And seeing the next gen car on our track at Sonoma Raceway is going to be, I think, one of the highlights, because we have a ton of elevation, a ton of unexpected turns that I think the car is going to really perform well. So we will stick with the chute for now, but the fans and the drivers were all overwhelmingly in favor of doing that.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's the right move. More passing opportunities. To me, the infield section where the carousel was just seemed like it was more follow the leader. And the statistics showed there was less passing going into turn 7. And so this is, again, more laps around the track, and the sight lines and everything is much simpler when you're going straight from turn 4 to 7 as a driver. And so when you have that confidence, you have that to go and make more passes.
Well, we want to thank everyone, thank the panelists for being here today and for all you're doing for NASCAR and moving things forward, especially with Sonoma Raceway. Jill, and two, we want to thank everyone for being here. We're going to do a quick photo op with the panelists up front, and then we'll have media availability for all of them around. We'll have Jill, Daniel, and Kurt up front, and we'll have Steve and Brandon over on the side for media availability, whether it's one-on-one or scrums. But thank you for being here, and most importantly, we hope to see you at Sonoma Raceway this weekend. To learn more about this weekend's race weekend, please go to sonomaraceway.com. We look forward to seeing you at the track. Thank you.